Hey guys, this is part two of your apartheid lesson. Apartheid in South Africa. So the word apartheid means separateness or apartness, and in Afrikaans, and which is the white language um, in South Africa. But the National Party came to power in 1948 and created this system, which was a bunch of laws designed strategically to keep whites and Native Africans separated, but also to keep white South Africans in positions of power and in control of the 80 to 90% of the population that was Black Native South Africans. So of course there was resistance. We looked at some of those laws and how ridiculous they were. But there was resistance. In the 1950s, the African National Congress was formed, and they were as a group or an organization to fight apartheid. And they basically urged people to peacefully, non-violently protest, strike, to break the laws peacefully on purpose. Sound familiar? It should. The goal was to increase the rights of Native Africans, but they didn't have any rights to begin with, and of course the government declared it illegal because they did not want the Native Africans to have any power, and so they began arresting members of the ANC. That's their flag, and there is a picture of people protesting, and there is young Nelson Mandela, and he is a member of the ANC and eventually becomes leader of the ANC. So who is this Mandela man? Rolihlahla Mandela was born in 1918 in South Africa. He was the son of a chief of the Timbu tribe. His father died when he was 9, but because he was the son of a chief, it was ensured that he was taken care of and sent to live with another chief, and it was ensured that he got the best possible education. On the first day of school, his teacher named him Nelson and said Rolihlahla was not going to work for him. There he is in his tribal gear. He was the first in his family to get an education. He was an excellent student, very bright and very motivated, and after graduating he became a lawyer, and he wanted to defend those Black South Africans that had been charged with breaking the apartheid laws because he believed in that cause. There he is as a young lawyer, and he became an important member of the ANC. He participated in many protests, and he admired Gandhi, who used peaceful protests in India to get India's independence from England. Now, Gandhi is also who Martin Luther King used as a or saw as a role model, and whose philosophy Martin Luther King borrowed for the civil rights movement. And that's why I said it should sound familiar, that idea of nonviolent peaceful protest and civil disobedience and breaking the laws peacefully. So Mandela, encouraged his followers to follow Gandhi's beliefs, just like Martin Luther King did. Here, there's a protest, Africa for Africans, or a march with signs there, bury apartheid, all kids. So this philosophy of nonviolence worked at first, but in 1960, a protest in the town of Sharpeville turned violent when policemen opened fire on peaceful protesters, killing almost 70 people and injuring almost 200. And after this, the ANC and Mandela began to rethink their approach of nonviolence and whether it was enough. That is a pretty powerful photograph from that Sharpeville massacre, and that one is as well, people running away. So eventually Mandela is captured and accused of sabotage and plotting to overthrow the government. He is a threat to the white government, and they want him in jail because he is a leader, the leader of the ANC. Here's a song that In 1964, it says "Free Nelson Mandela" is the chorus. In 1964, when he was 46, he's found guilty and sentenced to life in prison on Robben Island, and had to do hard labor, could only have a visitor every 6 months. When we went to South Africa, we toured Robben Island. It's a museum now. You can see the sign here in both Afrikaans and English. There it is, the island, and you can see Table Mountain in Cape Town in the distance. It's absolutely beautiful. There is Nelson Mandela's tiny jail cell, which I stood in. I can't find the picture for some reason, but I found some of my other ones like this. This is the window to his cell and a picture of him. Something that was amazing about Nelson Mandela was that he used his time in jail to educate people. Here's this. So even though he was imprisoned, he found a way to continue sort of his mission of ending apartheid by, while they're in the rock quarry doing hard labor, moving rocks or whatever, he is teaching other prisoners. So there's a sign that's there now showing some of the prisoners who, after the apartheid ended and they were freed, coming back from the island and after being released from prison. So that's like on a plaque as part of the museum that it is now. And this was our guide, and the guides on Robben Island are former prisoners, which at first seemed really strange to me, because why would you want to go back and relive your time if in prison? But they are so proud to have been part of the struggle, so they feel like their crimes were justified, and so they choose to, as a job, educate visitors about what happened there. Eventually, the rest of the world becomes aware of what's going on in South Africa with apartheid, and attention is being brought to it. And the United Nations enforces sanctions and embargoes against South Africa to pressure them to end apartheid. So what that means is they begin to say limit trade, and so they can't send out and bring in exports and imports that is what's keeping their economy strong. So countries boycott tourism in South Africa. Even sports teams refuse to compete against them in international competitions, boycotting, not buying goods made in South Africa. And to be clear, not every white South African was a supporter of the system of apartheid, even though they benefited from it. F.W. de Klerk becomes the president in 1989, and he sees that apartheid is hurting the economy. And he believes it's unfair also, and that it's time to change. And so when he gets into power, he immediately removes the ban on the ANC and allows them to exist again, and other political organizations. And he also orders that any Black South Africans who were imprisoned for opposing apartheid law, he ordered that they be released, including Nelson, right? Mandela. So in 1990, Mandela is pardoned by de Klerk, which means he is, he's let out of prison. He is released, and he is a free man after serving 27 years. So imagine being in jail for 27 years and then suddenly becoming free. So de Klerk was part of a major role in ending, or had a major role in ending, the apartheid system. And so did Nelson Mandela, and they worked together. Remember this scene of them shaking hands, because you're going to have to create a hypothetical text message exchange between these two men. Here's Mandela being released, and he gets out and he becomes president of the ANC again, and works together with President de Klerk to end and take apart this system of apartheid and to write a new constitution for the country of South Africa. And in this law of the land, this government document, and they officially end apartheid and grant equality to all South Africans. Here are President F.W. de Klerk and Nelson Mandela. In 1993, they were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, so they shared it, for moving the country forward to a non-racial democracy. And South Africa became known as the Rainbow Nation. That's like a nickname now. So your task for the text message assignment is to, based on what you learned, what would Mandela say to de Klerk and what would de Klerk say to Mandela over a text message? And this is obviously hypothetical, just pretending. But write a message from Mandela to de Klerk sharing his thoughts about rebuilding South Africa after being released from prison. And whatever your message says, it should show his attitudes and his ideas, and then write a possible response that de Klerk might have had. And you can use texting language and abbreviations that you guys use. Okay, so, and if you double tap, if you're doing it digitally, if you double tap in the box, you can type. So after years of protests, Black South Africans began to have a role in the government of their country, which was huge. And they had their first election open to everyone in 1994, and Nelson Mandela was elected the first Black president, and also the first president elected in a fully representative democratic election. So can you imagine being in jail for 27 years and then coming out, writing a new constitution for the country with its president, and then becoming the president and the first president that is voted in by the whole population? And there's a rally of his supporters, and that is a waiting line to vote. This was, again, very exciting. There he is voting. I mean, you know, these things we take for granted. Going to vote. I mean, look at these people lined up for the first time to be able to vote. So even though all of that amazing change happened, and that push to, or that huge step towards equality, and the fact that South Africa does have a stable government, they have one of the biggest economies in Africa, there's still major issues. When you know, a law can be changed overnight, but it takes a lot longer for people's behaviors, their mentalities, their attitudes to change. And we kind of talked about this in regards to the civil rights movement and the desegregation of schools that was ordered in 1954 when the Supreme Court in Brown versus Board of Education ordered the schools in the United States to integrate. That it didn't happen overnight. It took years and years in some cases. But there's also still major economic inequality and poverty throughout the country. Those townships that you saw with the housing pieced together from materials, they exist still, and most of the wealth is concentrated in mostly white cities, areas, and the mostly Black rural areas are still very, very poor. Nelson Mandela died in 2013, but what an amazing life story. If you want to learn more, I have included a couple of slides with movies and books. If you were going to watch one movie I think that you guys would like the most, it would probably be this one, Invictus, about the rugby team and how Mandela used the rugby team to unite the country. Mandela is played by Morgan Freeman, and Matt Damon is the captain of the rugby team. And then you've got some more, and then lots of books, nonfiction and fiction. Yeah, so interesting topic. It interests me a lot, and if it interests you, learn more.